I know I'm going to be busy this week, but I still want to get some videos out. So since on my main channel, Chan's Movie Vlog channel, check that channel out if you like my reviews on this channel. I posted my 200 subscriber special video where I talked about my top 5 favorite movies. So I kind of wanted to make a video talk about my top 5 least favorite movies of all time. Yeah, let's get started. So, let's start at the bottom. We have Frozen. Frozen is my least favorite of the Disney animated movies, except for one, which I'm sure you could guess which one that is by Frozen being on this list. What the next movie is on this list is. Here's the thing. Frozen is, when I first saw it, this is a true story. I was staying in the hospital. I forget why at the time. But, I saw the movie, and I watched it in the hospital a week before the movie released in theaters. I think the world premiere of this movie had happened, but, I wasn't a critic, I wasn't going to be able to get to world premieres or stuff like that. I was just a kid, So I see Frozen, and I didn't really know what to think of Frozen before I saw the movie. I don't think anybody did. It kind of looked like a Tangled knockoff, kind of a little bit. I don't know. People didn't really know. And I watched it, and I was like, I liked the Mickey Mouse short in front of it, get a horse. And I watched the movie, and I'm like, I was kind of like in denial a little bit. I'm like, this is fine. It's not great. But little did I know I was going to hear Let It Go and Frozen nonstop. Now, before this movie had come out, Lion King was the highest grossing animated film at the time. Which, wow. The highest grossing animated film, And here's the thing. Lion King's a great movie. I love the original Lion King. I do not love Frozen. Frozen is an awful movie. It has a lot of parts to the movie that don't need to be there. There are several points in the story that could be there. When Elsa was originally supposed to be a villain in the movie, you can tell a lot of that part of the script was not changed, so Elsa still comes across as a villain, even though she's supposed to be a good guy in this version of the movie. In the original version of the movie, she was supposed to be the bad guy. Hans is a very confusing twist villain. The trolls don't need to be there. They're very distracting. Some of the songs don't really belong there, should have been cut out. This movie went through a bunch of rewrites, and when you watch the movie, you can tell because there are a lot of conflicting, weird tones in the movie that I don't think people acknowledge. This movie is just awful. It's not one of the worst animated films I've ever seen. It's just the one I hate the most, and I think a lot of that comes down to the fact it was so overhyped. And yeah, people will say, well, that's not an argument for how bad the movie is. You're right. So if I was going to, but it still doesn't change the fact that this is one of the movies I hate the most. I don't think it's one of the worst films ever made. I don't think any of these movies are one of the worst films ever made, except for number 1. And, yeah. So Frozen 2 is number 4. Now, I wasn't going to go see Frozen 2 because I hated Frozen. But, me and my friend, it was a Saturday. We were out from school. We were out and about doing stuff. We went shopping and stuff. We're like, we kind of wanted to go see a movie. We were thinking about seeing the new Charlie's Angels reboot at the time. The new one at the time, which was the one with Elizabeth Banks. And he's like, I kind of want to see Frozen 2. And I'm like, are you serious? You want to see that? I'm like, fine, I'll pay. And we went to go see Frozen 2. And I initially, when that movie came out on my main channel, Chan's Movie Vlog channel, I made a Frozen 2 rant video because I really, really hated Frozen 2. It is awful. Now, there's a documentary on Disney Plus about why this film is so awful. There is a part in the documentary where they had a test screening for this movie, and the test screening came back terrible. Awful test screening. And so they had to changed this movie 6 months before this movie came out. And because they had to do that, the movie suffered. Because that was so little time, they couldn't decide on the story, it just became a big mess. And so the whole movie was absolute garbage. And a lot of it boils down to, they could have fixed this movie, but Disney did not want to delay this movie. And that is a garbage mentality from any studio, because this is a film that no matter what you do, this film would have been a $1 billion movie. This movie made more money than the first movie. No matter when you released it. If it had been 20 years from now, it would have done that. There's no chance that this wouldn't have made that money. They could have delayed this film. It's horrible that they didn't. And this movie turned out even worse than the first movie. As someone who already didn't think the first movie was good, this movie is 10 times worse. The songs don't really flow well with the story. The story's confusing, doesn't make any sense. Olaf is annoying, and the part where they try to kill him off and make, because they think the audience is so dumb that they'll believe that he died. You know, it's just, there's a lot of terrible moments to this film. I absolutely hate this film. Just horrible film. I will never watch this film again. I've seen Frozen more than once, but I will never watch Frozen 2 ever again. Only one time I've seen this movie. Never again. The next film on this list is Suicide Squad and Batman vs. Superman. Now, if you're going to ask me which film do I think is worse on this list, Suicide Squad or Batman vs. Superman, it's Suicide Squad, without a doubt. Suicide Squad is just a terrible movie. It's incredibly poorly made. The story, the characters, it doesn't really make sense. The editing is terrible. The way the movie's shot, the movie looks horrible. It's really dark and gray looking. It just looks terrible. I don't like the way that now Harley Quinn has just become like a slut character, which that's not what she is in the comics. That's not what she is when she first appeared in Batman the Animated Series or any of that stuff. As someone who really likes that character, the way they portray her in this movie is atrocious. And now people think that's what Harley Quinn is. And she's not like that at all. I love her as a character. I especially love the Harley Quinn series, and I hate the way they portray her in this movie. Batman vs. Superman, I just really hate too. I just really hate it for a majority of most reasons. People hate this movie. I mostly hate it for the way it portrays Superman and Batman. I really hate movies that portray Batman and Superman poorly, because they're some of my favorite characters. I hear a lot of shit from people saying, hey, Superman kind of sucks, blah, 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 whatever reason they think that. And whatever the reason they think that is usually wrong or incorrect, but that's because the way they've been portrayed in movies has been pretty poor. Batman's got a good rap, though, because he's been in tons of great movies, so, like, The Dark Knight and Batman Begins, and, well, Batman 1989 is not a good Batman movie, it's a good movie. You know, Superman hasn't really been in a great movie besides, like, the 78 version, but I think the 78 version doesn't hold up as well as, you know, Batman 1989 does, but, you know, that's just me. So, yeah, I don't really like that. So yeah, that's number 3. So number 2 is Man of Steel. Man of Steel is awful. It is the most irritating, painful film for me to watch because of how pretentious this film feels. I don't think Batman vs. Superman feels as pretentious as this film does. The way they're trying to, like, symbolize Superman's like Jesus and deconstruct it, and it's just like, that's not Superman. It's a terrible approach to the character. You're not really saying anything new about the character. You're molding the character into something that he never was before, and what he did with him was just disgusting and atrocious. I'm still waiting for an actually good Superman film to come out. I'm going to keep praying. We have had 5, 6, 7 Superman movies, and 8, 9 if you count both cuts of Justice League, but I don't. So, you know, 7 movies about Superman that have been theatrically released anyways. and they've all portrayed Superman very poorly and disgustingly. So, except from Superman the movie, that one portrayed him okay. It just still could have been better. Number 1 is another tie, just like Suicide Squad and Batman vs. Superman, but both of these remakes are terrible remakes. I am not someone who goes into remakes waiting to hate them. I've seen good remakes. A lot of classic movies are remakes. 10 Commandments and Scarface. Those are remakes. That's right. The one with Al Pacino is a remake. That's right. Cedric Jamil's 19... What year was that? I don't even remember, but you get the point. It was a remake. And they're remakes. And, you know, so remakes can be good. I've seen great remakes. I've seen remakes that maybe don't stand toe-to-toe with the original, but they're still good movies on their own. And I think that's an important thing there. But these remakes are awful because they don't stand on their own. And they're the worst films I've ever seen because I can't judge them as their own films no matter how much I try. And these films are the Psycho remake and the Lion King remake. Some people might find this... So, quick backstory on the Psycho remake. Psycho remake, you know, there's obviously Alfred Hitchcock film. Now, there are several sequels to Psycho, so people act like Psycho is like this untouchable horror movie. Well, it's been touched. It has been touched. It has been hurt before this remake came out. This remake is a shot-for-shot remake that they add like a couple things into it that are unnecessary and bad. And so, yeah, the Psycho remake is terrible. And here's what I'm going to say about the remake. I understand people's dislike for this movie, right? Here's the thing you gotta remember. This movie came out and was disliked, hated. This film was deemed awful. Majority of people hate the Psycho remake. It is not remembered fondly. So it's weird that when Disney does the same thing with one of the greatest films, animated films ever made, The Lion King, it is somewhat received positively. Now, I know there's some, like, mixed critical reception with this movie. I know there's, like, a lot of videos you can find on YouTube of hating this movie. But I'm talking general people love The Lion King remake. I've had people tell me their favorite movie is The Lion King, and when I ask them which version, they say both. And I think that's disgusting. Not that they like this film, but I think it's just weird. It's just odd that's a thing. And both of these movies are terrible. They miss the point of what makes the original so special. Not just the fact that they're the original, but the fact that they're incredible movies that had incredible thought and effort put into them. And they're just copying what some other talented, incredible people did before. And doing it significantly worse. And not just worse because it's the same thing again, but just because they don't understand the love and passion that went into the thing that was made beforehand. The Lion King was a passion project. Back in the 90s, they thought Pocahontas was going to be the bigger film. So the people who were working on The Lion King were the ones who were passionate about it. And it became the highest grossing animated film of all time because people loved it. You know, Alfred Hitchcock, a lot of people were kind of scared of Psycho because Psycho was a lot more risque for horror movies at the time, and a lot of people were scared of Psycho and they didn't want this film to come out, and then there was things like that. You know, these horror movies, this is a thing. You know, these movies took risk. They came out, they changed things, they were incredible films. They went through hard work, effort, love, care, struggles to be great films. These films didn't have to struggle to become great art. Because they're not great art. They're trash. And yeah, that's my list of my top 5 worst, my least favorite films of all time. I don't think these films are the worst films ever made, besides, I guess, like, maybe Suicide Squad, Lion King remake, and the Psycho remake. I think those 3 are the worst, some of the worst films ever made. The rest of these, I don't think they're the worst films ever made. I don't think that at all. But they're just movies that I personally hate the most. And if you like any of these films, that's fine. I don't really have a problem with people liking these films. My problem when people like movies that aren't really the greatest is like the unwillingness to acknowledge that the thing you like has flaws. If we can have a lively discussion where you can say, hey, I like this movie for this reason. I know this movie has flaws, but I still enjoy it. Cool. Because I like plenty of movies that I know aren't the greatest, but I acknowledge their flaws, and I still like them anyways. But, yeah, those are my least favorite films down below. Let me know your favorite movies and your least favorite movies down in the comment section below. Did you disagree with any of my choices? Give me a reason you disagree. Don't just tell me you disagree with me. But why do you disagree with me?